We finally made it, boys and girls, for the 4 women who actually watch my videos. This far into my series on tensor calculus, I'm going to derive probably one of the most important equations, not just in tensor calculus, but in differential geometry, and probably what most of you are interested in, general relativity. We're going to derive the geodesic equation from first principles using what we've learned so far in tensor calculus. Suppose I have a curve gamma that's parametrized with respect to the parameter t. In general, this gamma can be written as a function of each of the coordinates, so x super 1, x super 2, all the way to x super n, where n is the dimension of my space. And since gamma is parametrized by the parameter t, each of these coordinates that gamma is a function of is also a function of the parameter t. Suppose also that my curve gamma exists in a space and coordinate system with the metric tensor g, whose components are given by g sub ij. If I wanted to find the length of gamma from t equals a to t equals b, then I can find this length, which I'll call L, using this integral, the integral from a to b of the square root of the absolute value of g sub ij times the derivative of x super I with respect to t times the derivative of x super j with respect to t, where x super I and x super j are the parametric equations of some coordinates that are found in the curve gamma. Later on in the video, you'll see that this absolute value will disappear, and that's because I'm going to assume the metric tensor is positive definite, meaning that the term inside the absolute value will not be negative, so we can later just get rid of the absolute value. The positive definite nature of the metric tensor is generally true for most situations that we'll be dealing with, specifically situations in Riemannian geometry. Anyway, let's analyze this term inside the integral a bit and pull it out to the side. Both the indices I and j are repeated twice in this expression, so according to the rules of Einstein notation, this means that these indices are summed over. Because these indices are summed over, they're summed out, so what I'm left with is a scalar quantity which I'll call w, which doesn't have an index because the indices I and j are just summed over. Now let's take this length integral and approach things slightly differently. Instead of trying to find the length of the curve, I want to find the curve that minimizes this length integral. That is, I want to find the parametric equations for the coordinates, all the x super 1, x super 2, and so on, that minimize this length functional L, this function of functions. The curve that minimizes the length functional between 2 points is called a geodesic curve for that particular space. You'll also hear people pronounce it as geodesic. Now, how do I minimize my length functional? How do I minimize a function of functions, or at least find a function which makes a functional stationary? Well, I use the techniques of calculus of variation. Specifically, I need to use the Euler-Lagrange equation. Let's now go back and recall some concepts from variational calculus. Recall that if I have an integral I of a function x, y, and y prime, or dy by dx, if I want to find a function y of x which minimizes this I, which effectively is a function of functions, then the way to find the stationary function y is to solve for it using the Euler-Lagrange equation, which would look something like this in this case. But if I had a more complicated functional which involved an integral of a function of t and multiple dependent variables and their derivatives, then to make this functional stationary, I would still have to solve the Euler-Lagrange equation, but I would need to solve it for each dependent variable, so x super 1, x super 2, all the way to x super n. Now this generic length integral with the metric tensor and everything, this term being integrated in the generic length integral, is also a function of t and multiple dependent variables, our parametrized coordinates x super 1 and so on, and the derivatives of these parametrized coordinates with respect to t. So if I want to minimize this length integral, I need to apply the Euler-Lagrange equation to each of these parametrized coordinates. So in general, if I write the function I'm integrating in this length integral as capital F of t, x super 1, the t derivative of x super 1, all the way to x super n and its derivative, then if I want to find the coordinate x super k that minimizes this length functional, I would have to solve this Euler-Lagrange equation for x super k, where k is some free index that can be anything from 1 to n depending on the specific parametrized coordinate you're interested in. I'm going to call this equation 1. Now this Euler-Lagrange equation is just the generic equation for finding the x super k coordinate. If I wanted to find the complete curve gamma, I'd have to solve the equation 1 for every value of k, so from 1 all the way to n. So if I wanted to find my complete length minimizing curve gamma, I'd need to solve a system of n different Euler-Lagrange equations for each parametrized coordinate. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's now plug in some values. This function capital F can just be written as the square root of w, which I defined up here. That means if I wanted the partial of capital F with respect to x super k, I can use the chain rule to show that in terms of w, this partial derivative is just the following. I can do the same thing for the partial of capital F with respect to x super k prime, or dx super k by dt, and this is what it would look like in terms of w if I apply the chain rule. Now let's bring back our w. This w consists of g sub ij and the t derivatives of x super I and x super j. Among these terms, the t derivatives of x super I and x super j are just functions of t. The coordinates and their derivatives obviously can't be functions of each other. However, the metric tensor component g sub ij is in general a function of the coordinates, one of which will be x super k. This means that when I'm taking the partial of w with respect to x super k, these t derivatives are effectively constants for that partial derivative, and all we would have is the partial of g sub ij times these two t derivatives in the first term of this Euler-Lagrange equation. But what about the second term, particularly the partial of w with respect to x super k prime? Well, this is a bit more tricky. We'll bring in our w again, which is a product of g sub ij and the t derivatives of x super I and x super j. Now, g sub ij is only a function of the coordinates. It is not a function of the t derivatives of those coordinates. So you might be tempted to say here that since there's no derivative of x super k, the partial of w with respect to x super k prime is 0. But that's actually not true. That's because this w is actually a summation of this term on the right, which is a sum over both the I and j indices. Some of the terms that show up in the summation actually include x super k prime, particularly g sub I k times the t derivative of x super I and x super k, and g sub ki times the t derivative of x super k and x super I. So since these two terms actually contain x super k prime, the partial of w with respect to x super k prime would be the sum of these two terms. And finally, since the metric tensor is a symmetric tensor, the g sub ki component equals the g sub ik component. So we can actually combine these terms to get twice the value of a single term. So now if we plug this into our Euler-Lagrange equation for our geodesic curve, this is what we get. Note that I've moved the derivative in t term to the other side of the equality here. And speaking of this derivative in t term, let's evaluate it. We'll need to use the product rule on the w term, the g sub ik term, and the t derivative in the x super I term. When we do that, this is what we get. Let's leave the dw by dt term as it is for now and focus on the t derivative of g sub ik. In general, we know that the metric tensor component is just a function of the coordinates x super 1, x super 2, and so on. Each of these coordinates we know is a function of t, so if I want the total derivative of g sub ik with respect to t, then by the chain rule, it would just be the partial of g sub ik with respect to x super 1 times the derivative of x super 1 with respect to t, plus the partial of g sub ik with respect to x super 2 times the derivative of x super 2 with respect to t, and so on and so forth. I can simplify this by Einstein notation by using j as my dummy index to express this long expression as the sum over j of the partial of g sub ik with respect to x super j times the t derivative of x super j. When I perform the simplification, this is what I get with my Euler-Lagrange equation. Now I'm going to do three small things. I'm going to multiply both sides by the square root of w, so effectively canceling that out. Then I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 and then move the w containing term to the left and everything else without the w to the right. When I do that, this is what I end up with. Now what we'll do is split up this 2 times g sub ik term on the right. Since g sub ik is the same as g sub ki by the symmetric nature of the metric tensor, I can rewrite the second term in my split as g sub ki. Now I'm going to pull off another trick. In this first term with the g sub ik, the indices I and j are dummy indices because they're repeated twice, and since they're dummy indices, I can replace them with almost any index I want, except maybe k, and it wouldn't change my expression because I and j just get summed over, they're dummy indices. So what I'll do is that I'll replace the I by the j and the j by the I because that'll make things more simple for us later on. When I do that, my Euler-Lagrange equation ends up like this. Now, all three of these terms with the derivative of the metric tensor component are also all multiplying the derivatives of x super I and x super j. So if I take these x super I and x super j derivatives common, here's what I'll have. Now, does this term involving the derivatives of the metric tensor components look familiar? Well, it should, because by definition, this is just 2 times the Christoffel symbol of the first kind with indices I, j, k. When I plug this Christoffel symbol in, this is what I'll get. Let's now simplify this equation further by multiplying both sides by the components g super pk of the inverse metric tensor, and we'll also flip our equation from left to right for convenience. When I do that, this is what I end up with. The nice thing about this equation is that I can simplify things even further. The product of the metric tensor component g sub ik with the inverse metric tensor component g super pk is the Kronecker delta symbol with the indices p and I. Meanwhile, the product of g super pk and the Christoffel symbol of the first kind with indices I, j, k is just the Christoffel symbol of the second kind, gamma super p and then sub ij. And this is just from my video on Christoffel symbols, so go watch that if you haven't already. Now, the Kronecker delta symbol is 0 except when I equals p, where it's just 1. So when I replace the I in these terms by p and when I divide both sides by 2, I get the equation that I've been looking for this whole time, this geodesic equation. Let's analyze this equation a bit. What this tells me is that if I plug in a metric tensor, which basically goes into my Christoffel symbol and into my W term on the right, then I can find the geodesic between 2 points corresponding to that metric tensor. And the geodesic I would solve for with this geodesic equation would be a curve parametrized with respect to the parameter t. So if I plug in, say, the metric tensor for Euclidean space and Cartesian coordinates, I would be able to find the parametric equations for the corresponding geodesic, which in this case is just a straight line. The shortest distance between 2 points in standard Euclidean space is a straight line. Similarly, if I plug in the metric tensor for the surface of a sphere into the geodesic equation, I would be able to find the parametric equations for that geodesic, which would just be an arc on the great circle. In general, I can do this for pretty much any metric tensor corresponding to any space or coordinate system, and I can get my corresponding geodesic. Now, what if I told you that I can simplify things even further? The way it's structured right now, my geodesic equation, which I'll call equation 2, would give me the equation of a curve that's parametrized with respect to t. But if you recall my differential geometry videos, we often like to have our curves parametrized with respect to arc length because that makes our algebra simpler. So what if I wanted the solutions to my geodesic equation to be parametrized with respect to arc length? Well, in that case, the geodesic equation simplifies even more. Let's bring back our length integral. You can also write this length integral as the integral from point A to point B of the arc length element ds. In that case, this square root term would just be written as ds by dt because I have the dt outside, which would mean that my w is just the square of ds by dt. Now, if my curve were already parametrized with respect to arc length, then that would mean that the parameter t is just the arc length s. And if w is the derivative of s with respect to the parameter t squared, then w would just become the derivative of s with respect to s, which is just 1. And since w is now a constant when we have the parameter become the arc length s, its derivative with respect to a parameter, s in this case, would just be 0. So in equation 2, parametrizing with respect to arc length makes your right-hand side 0. This greatly simplifies the geodesic equation to the second derivative of x super p with respect to s, plus the Christoffel symbol of the second kind gamma super p sub ij, times the derivative of x super I with respect to s times the derivative of x super j with respect to s equals 0. This is often quoted as the geodesic equation that most are familiar with, but it's not a single equation. It's a system of differential equations that for a given metric tensor, which is incorporated into the second kind Christoffel symbol, will spit out a parametric equation describing each coordinate in the geodesic curve, the curve that minimizes the distance between 2 points. This time, though, the parametric equation will be written in terms of the arc length parameter s. Now, one caveat to all this is that the Euler-Lagrange equations gives you a function that makes a functional stationary. You don't necessarily know that that function makes that functional a minimum just by solving the Euler-Lagrange equation. But this is something that you've probably come across if you've seen my calculus of variations video. I'm very careful to specify that distinction. So there you have it. I've officially derived the geodesic equation. I'd like to thank the following patrons for their support, and if you enjoyed the video, feel free to like and subscribe. This is the Faculty of Khan signing out.